Not everyone wants to get their hands dirty, but at the end of the day, some people have to do jobs that involve facing some of the things that not many would want to do. One of those jobs is being a police officer. Being part of the police force requires officers to respond to the calls of citizens in need. Sometimes these calls are bizarre and require the police to investigate very strange things that many people would find hard to believe. Today we're going to be looking at discoveries made by the police. With all that said and done, let's begin, shall we? Number 8. Scarecrow in Need. Before we jump into the dark and weird discoveries, let's start with a funny one. It happened in the city of Winters, California during the fall season of 2014. It all started when the police responded to a 911 call from a woman who claimed to have found a body downtown. It sounded scary, so the police went right away. But mysteriously, when they showed up to the scene, there was no one in sight. Not even the body that the woman claimed to have seen. However, the one thing they spotted was a scarecrow on a wall near the spot where the woman said to have found the mysterious body. Was she referring to the scarecrow? Well, if that's the case, then this woman is not familiar with this city's traditions. Apparently, people around the town always put up scarecrows as decorations during this time of year. Number 7. House of Leaves. And now we start with the creepy findings. This one happened in Ohio in 2010 when 2 police officers entered the house of a guy who had been holding hostages for a while. But the strangest thing about this crime scene was the fact that the place was covered in leaves. The bathroom alone was filled with at least 100 bags of leaves, and the freezer in the house only had 2 popsicles and a couple of poor frozen animals. Apparently, this guy was obsessed with trees. Unfortunately, some of the people who were locked inside this house weren't able to survive and tell their stories. But there was one girl that was kept in the basement who was rescued by the police. The offender of the crime was put in jail and is now serving a life sentence behind bars. When the authorities explored the crime scene and the events surrounding the crime, they came to realize that the guy had an unhealthy obsession with trees and leaves. Heck, the psychologist even admitted that it was a very unique type of criminal. Number 6. Monster. Sometimes police officers get calls that they wish they could just ignore, especially when callers claim that they're being visited by monsters. But one day, a detective responded to someone's call. Different people in the neighborhood told him that they had heard a gunshot, and then a monster came knocking on their door. As soon as they saw it, people would slam the door on the monster. When the detective went outside, he realized that the scary creature was in fact a person who had gotten hurt with a gun. His face had been so damaged to the point that people started to mistake him for a monster. He was knocking on people's doors because he needed help, but of course his appearance kept him from getting the help he so desperately needed. Number 5. House full of rats. I'm sure a lot of police officers wish they could reset their minds and forget some of the things they've seen in their life. Kinda like the guys who found 3 children living in a house with more than 200 animals, which includes 80 rats. Ugh. It all started when a man named Greg Nelson called authorities to do an inspection in the place where his children were living. He had just ended his relationship with his wife, and with his girlfriend. Ugh. After the breakups, he wanted to take the children with him, but their mother wouldn't allow that. And it wasn't just that Greg wanted to take the children with him out of revenge or anything like that. The guy knew that his kids deserved a better place to live, and sure enough, the authorities confirmed that. When the officers entered the house, they could barely stay away from debris or animal poop. There were flies everywhere and tons of little animals that weren't supposed to share living spaces with any human being. It clearly wasn't a healthy space for these kids. Number 4. Werewolf. Some creatures only exist in movies and fantasy books. But when a girl claims that one of these creatures is right outside her window, well, would you believe her? I'm guessing not. But that's what happened to a police officer in Ohio, whose daughter said that she had seen a werewolf-looking creature outside her window. Of course, her dad had found it a little hard to believe, but then other people started to come forward with similar stories. In the end, they realized that there was a person dressed up as a werewolf peeping inside people's homes. He dressed up just so no one would believe the witnesses' stories whenever they would tell others about what was happening. It was a pretty clever tactic, especially since a lot of people in Ohio believed there were werewolves amongst them. Number 3. UFOs and aliens. One of the main jobs of a police officer is to make sure that we all stay within speed limits while driving on public roads. Otherwise, we get ticketed. That's what Lonnie Zamora was doing during a shift in Socorro, New Mexico. He was making sure that the roads were safe, but suddenly he heard a noise and spotted a flame not too far from where he was. He immediately went to investigate and found an egg-shaped object standing on 4 legs. But that's not all. As soon as he got to the spot, he also saw 2 creatures. When he got closer, the creatures disappeared and then the object took off. A closer look at the spot revealed that there was indeed some sort of object on 4 legs that had been standing there, and there was also non-human footprints near it. Also, the sand that was under the object had been burned to the point that it turned into crystal. Neither NASA nor the US Air Force had any flying objects that matched what Lonnie had seen. As of today, no one can dismiss Lonnie's claim. It's too specific and there's no way to reject it. Now it's time for the day's best pick. The picture I chose for the day shows an incredible discovery made by the police, one that I'm sure many of them regret as it proves how clever a dangerous criminal can be. Number 2. Tunnel to Escape. Joaquin Guzman Loera, also known as El Chapo, is a very famous Mexican criminal who has managed to escape prison twice in his life. The most famous escape was the one he did in 2015. Even though he was in a high-security prison with cameras watching over him at all times, there was a blind spot near the shower area. It was from that spot that he was able to access the tunnel and escape. The tunnel led to a small shack on a rural farm not so far from the prison. Discovering this tunnel was indeed shocking for the police, as it showed them that their prison wasn't as secure as they figured. However, the authorities were able to capture the man again in 2016. And in 2017, he was taken to the US, where he's going to spend the rest of his life at a federal prison in New York. I bet the prison guards keep their eyes on him at all times, and I'm sure they already check the surrounding areas for any possible tunnels that might help him escape. Before we move on, do me a favor. My analytics show that only about 15% of you watching are actually subscribed. Come on guys, what's up with that? Can you guys please hit the subscribe button? You guys watch my videos every day anyway, so you might as well subscribe and keep up to date with every video we put out. Number 1. Haunted Houses. I saved the creepiest story for the end. This one took place in Spain in the early 90s, and it started when local authorities got a phone call from people who said that some furniture and other stuff at their home kept moving. The police weren't so sure about it, but once they got to the house, they confirmed the people's claims. The door of a closet kept moving, and other supernatural things made the officers realize that something dark was happening in this home. The family in the home linked these strange events to their daughter, Estefania, who had suddenly passed away the year prior to this phone call. Apparently, these strange events started when Estefania became obsessed with some obscure games. Estefania passed away, but the events didn't stop. There was no logical or scientific explanation for these things, but they knew that it was better for the family to move out and find a new place to stay. This story became a cautionary tale for all those who like to mess with dark things. And it also shows us how sometimes police officers have to be ready to face some of the creepiest things happening in our world. Have you ever heard any crazy stories from police officers? Which one of these was your favorite? Let us know in the comment section down below. With all that said and done, that's our video for today, folks, and I will see you all next time. Later, everybody.